Day one is in the books.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
You want some water?
It's showtime. Here is your host, Carolina Dad.
What's going on, folks? How are y'all doing tonight? No football for the Carolina Panthers. First live stream in 18 weeks? Feels like ages ago. Used to all my Sunday nights getting on here talking about the Carolina Panthers. Unfortunately, we have no Carolina football game to react to this week. But you know what? It's the offseason. We'll continue to talk about the Carolina Panthers because that's what we do. That's what I do. And there's plenty of storylines, but to be honest, I did not bring a ton of content with me tonight. So it's going to be a pretty laid-back show, probably short, maybe 30 minutes. We'll wrap things up, but hope you folks are doing well out there. Maybe you enjoyed the playoffs. I don't know. I did get to watch most of the games this weekend, although I was not glued to the TV, staying on top of them. And like, most were blowouts, and I don't know how many college football fans listen to this show, but I feel like it's growing. It's funny to hear people talk about the college football playoffs in the first round and the blowouts, and then you go out and honestly, up until the Philadelphia game, pretty much every game has been a blowout. Go back to Houston. I mean, Justin Herbert, not good. 32-12. Baltimore taking care of business over Pittsburgh. Nolan continues to remind me of that. And he is anxious to get on here to talk about the Baltimore Ravens. Buffalo handling Denver 31-7. And, of course, the Philadelphia Eagles taking care of business over the Green Bay Packers. And then right now at the half, which hopefully I'll catch the end of this once I get off the live stream, but it's 10-10 as the Washington Commanders and Tampa Bay Buccaneers square off. We'll have the Monday Night Football playoff game on ESPN and ABC tomorrow with the Minnesota Vikings and the Los Angeles Rams in Arizona. So TBD. And so anyways, fun way to kick off the show. I just posted it for those folks that are on YouTube and ask a question. What's good? Making True Money. I asked a question around What's up, Caleb? Around the NFC quarterbacks, and how many quarterbacks do we think Bryce Young is better than? First of all, the fact that we can even think about having this conversation, considering where things were earlier in the year, I don't know how many I would put, to be honest. I mean, he's gone toe-to-toe with Baker, at least in the first matchup. Second matchup, not so much. Saw a limited amount of time against Jaden Daniels, and Jaden Daniels looks really good. Jordan Love, I mean, Jalen Hurts, I feel like, he went toe-to-toe with Philly. Didn't really get to see him against Green Bay this year. I know we saw him last year. And then you really have Minnesota and Los Angeles. So I don't know. Maybe 1-2. I think at least Carolina Panthers fans probably would put Bryce Young over Sam Darnold, at least heading out into next year. We'll see. But it's an interesting thing to watch. I think the biggest takeaway, like so far in the playoffs, and unfortunately for the Carolina Panthers' sake, is defense, man. Defense, which it's not that it's not expected, but a lot of these wins come with really good defense, really good running game. Of course, there is good quarterback play built in there as well. So I don't know. Makes you wonder, what do the Carolina Panthers have to do to be in position to make the playoffs next year? And I think it's a realistic thing to talk about. I'm not saying the Carolina Panthers, the season just ended, and I'm not saying that they are a bona fide playoff team. There's a lot of work that has to be done. Most of it, if not all of it, on the defensive side of the ball. We're going to have a big lull period here. Outside of potentially extending, some of the exclusive rights or restricted free agents, it's going to be, not necessarily hearsay, because I do know you've got the folks that are on the ground and know what's happening, but we're going to get different reports. Really, the tampering period is not going to open up until March 10th. Legal tampering starts March 12th, new league year. That's when contracts, free agents will start signing. So for us, it's going to be about 2 months of just waiting and seeing. One thing that can happen along the way, of course, is trades. Of course, they won't become official until the new calendar year, but I think the speculation is going to run rampant with talks about Garrett Wilson to the Carolina Panthers. It seems like that's just going to continue to be a topic. But unfortunately, as I now get into the offseason mode and have time to start looking at mock drafts, and unfortunately, unless there's just some insane miracle, hard to imagine that Abdul Carter is available for the Carolina Panthers at pick 8. But you look out into the mock drafts. Speaking of which, I do have my first mock that's coming out. It's going to surprise some people. It really is, because it surprised myself. I think when you evaluate where the Panthers are right now, and I continue to talk about it, they can't get around the fact that we do not have our second round pick. We traded that away again to Chicago. Finally, this is we get them off the books this year. This is it. We'll be done. Don't have to hear about it anymore. But because we don't have our second round, we were fortunate enough last year to have Dan Morgan recoup our second round pick. Unfortunately, it is the Los Angeles Rams who are in the playoffs. So at a minimum, you're looking at 19, 20, 21, 22. It really depends on how the playoffs settle here. But it's going to be a later pick. You're going to be picking 50 plus. So you get one pick inside of the top 50 right now for the Panthers. And unfortunately, this is a team that needs probably 2 or 3 guys within that top 50 range. You go back a few years ago, look at the Houston Texans and their rebuild. And I know it's different because, one, they had more assets and they gave up more, and they had more picks within the top 10 and everything that they got. It's understandable. They were coming off a really bad year on the defensive side of the ball as well. But Carolina, I think they got a decision to make with Dan Morgan. And yes, I know the Panthers have hit on picks at number 8 with J.C. Horn, Christian McCaffrey, Jordan Gross, even Biaka Batuka back in the day. But for me, I think if the Panthers had their second round pick and it was where it was, I mean, you're talking 2 picks in top 40-ish, 41, if I do the math, or right at 40 to be exact, I would feel better. But just given the state of where the Panthers are, I don't know. I would be in favor of hoping and praying that someone wants to move up. And so if for me, I think there's a few ways to look at pick number 8. One, when I think about where the Carolina Panthers sit and their needs, it seems to be defense, although some people may make a case for wide receiver too, and that's understandable. A lot of people in the book of Tet getting him here. I don't know. I can't wrap my mind around not having a true playmaker at number 8. Again, the Panthers have been fortunate, but I don't know that there's that type of player that's there. And so for me, I am a big fan, if possible. Now, you're going to see hundreds of ridiculous mock drafts with crazy trades and trade backs and I don't do that at all. I will take a trade. TBD if I took a trade on this first one, you'll get to find out once I put it out there. But I am a heavy favorite. And the weird thing about it is when I look at trading back, I don't even know if that means you get a defensive player. I think there is one, the Panthers need to draft. We can talk about best player available. I think that's an obvious thing. But at the same time, when I look at, potentially drafting a safety at number 8, I know the Panthers need help at a safety position. I don't know if I want them to draft at number 8. Like, for me, I feel like it's a little bit of a reach. Not necessarily. I know there's some good guys out there at safety, especially in the range of 8, top 10, top 11. It's a long-term investment in the secondary. But there's a lot that the Panthers are going to have to decide. And a big part of the work for the Panthers going into the draft is going to center around free agency. Like, we can continue to mock, and I'll do a few mock drafts. I like to steer away from mocks. I mean, I still do them, probably 5 or 6 total, maybe 7 throughout leading up to April. I like to get to know more of the players and the potential players that can be drafted. Stay in tune with, if you're into this, with everything you see online. Ryan Fowler, I don't know how he does it, does a really great job of keeping up who the Panthers are meeting with. And he's not, and not just the Panthers, but all NFL teams. If you're into doing that stuff, go out and bookmark all his tweets, because he's going to put the writing on the wall for you as you build your draft board, because we've seen it. Again, this is really the 3rd year that I've been doing this. First year, I had no idea what I was doing. Last year, coming around a little bit, and then this year, it's like clockwork to get into this. But that's how I'm going to build out mine. And you never know. I mean, you go back and look at some of the player meetings, who the Panthers met with, and there's a good percentage of players that are drafted that they met with. We're never going to get the full list. We're not going to know every single person, but it at least gives you an idea. I will never get over the first year I did this. And I was just getting into it, and I don't remember which. It might have been Panthers Wire, USA Today. They put out a list of all the meetings of who met with who met with the Panthers. And I went through the list that year, and a few of the guys ended up being undrafted free agents that they brought in. And so my assumption was they like to meet with potential players they can draft, but then also undrafted free agents that they could, maybe, we look at what they did with Jalen Coker, but hey, in case you don't get drafted, we'd like to recruit you. That's the way I looked at it. And then no, that was just how bad the front office was, because going into last year, we were actually meeting with real prospects. Just the difference between the Fitterer days. And speaking of Fitterer, which is where I was going with this, Carolina Panthers are not in great position right now in cap space. It's not looking good, folks. So when a lot of people put on the table that they would like us to land a Wilson or sign a T. Higgins, the math isn't mathing, unfortunately, right now. And I'm not saying it can't happen. The Panthers sit at number 21, and I mean, this varies between Spotrac and Over the Cap, but around 21 to $23 million in cap space. This is not looking out into the potential projection or the increase that can happen, which we saw this past year, 15, 20 million or so, a good chunk that helped in that. But the Panthers are 21st, again, out of 32 teams in available cap space. To put it in perspective, the New England Patriots lead the way with $133 million. The Raiders with 112 are in second, and the Commanders at 103. Then a few folks under that drop down. Panthers are not in a good position. You do have, makes no sense at all. It never does. The New Orleans Saints, who I don't know how they do this. That has to be one of the worst front offices in the NFL. No offense. They do find good talent, at least the guys that are managing the cap. Negative $61 million. The work, I mean, to me, it feels imaginary, this cap space for them. They're negative 61. Atlanta is negative 3, and that is before they make a decision on Kirk Cousins and get rid of him. Same goes for Cleveland, who's at negative 24. Who knows what's going to happen with Watson and setback there. We actually have the most cap available in the NFC South, about $200,000 more than Tampa Bay. So we do have that going for us. You go back to the last offseason, of course, we know about Dan Morgan. The biggest addition for the Carolina Panthers in the front office, outside of Canales, of course, is the coach, and Dan Morgan is the GM, has to be Brant Tillis. Brant Tillis, this is your time to shine. Everyone knows the work that you were able to do in Kansas City, what you did with Pat Mahomes and his contract. This is a chance for you to figure this out. And I'm glad personally that I don't have to do that. Now, you get out into the 2026 offseason, things start to look a lot better for the Carolina Panthers. I think it goes up to around 150 million. To be honest, a lot of teams, a year or two out from now, start to free up quite a bit just because you have a lot of the contracts that are ending. I'm not going to go through this in too much detail, only because I just recorded a video on it that I'll publish. But the Panthers do have some decisions to make, which we know about. The first one, which last year they kind of just let it go, was Taylor Moton in his contract. Right now, he has the highest paid player on the team at $31 million. And so when we talk about this whole idea of voided years and restructuring, when you do that, or extension, you're pushing the problem further down the road for you to, again, maybe wind up in a situation like the New Orleans Saints with all this money and everything's due. But I did read, and I don't remember where I read it, the potential to maybe convert some of this money that you have into a signing bonus. There's work that you can do. Outside of that, I mean, I know there is some flexibility, but I think that's the first question I have. What are they going to do with Taylor Moton's contract? Robert Hunt, well worth the money. There's not a lot you can do there. Derek Brown, same. Damian Lewis. And these are the 4 highest paid players on the team. Here's one that I recorded. When I recorded, I talked about it. Jadeveon Clowney, Carolina product from South Carolina. I know why he was brought in here. He wants to be a part of this. But his cap number is $13.7 million. Now, the Panthers don't really have anybody outside of DJ Ekwonu that can get to the passer. So it would make sense that he's going to stay. But at the same time, you never know. Depending on who the Panthers draft or what they want to do, or if they want to take his $13 million and then split that up with 3 or 4 players, that's always a possibility. Of course, he's a little bit older as well. J.C. Horn, he's another. Remember, we picked up the 5th-year option, so this is actually that 5th year. If they go ahead and do what they did with Derek Brown, give him an extension, that'll save you some money as well, again, because you could lower the number this year. So I think getting J.C. Horn with the extension, definitely a possibility for the front office. Bryce Young. This is the thing when people talked about Bryce Young and wanting him gone and traded. When you analyze the situation with the Carolina Panthers, they're in a prime position because of the contract of Bryce Young. You look at teams that are paying 4 to 5, 6 times more for their quarterbacks than we are in Bryce Young. So take advantage of every year that you can to have Bryce Young. His cap number is only $10 million. I know the Panthers are probably thankful and blessed. They don't have to go out and spend 30, 40 on a Daniel Jones, or not that they'd bring Sam Darnold back, but that or a Russell Wilson or a Justin Fields or a Geno Smith. They're in a much better position, thankfully, with Bryce Young. Shy Tuttle, he's another one. 30 years old, $9 million cap number. I think if the Panthers can draft well on the defensive front with the defensive tackle, which I think they can, Graham is a possibility. I think there's a good chance that he could be out the door. A'Shawn Robinson, fantastic year. It's only 30 years old, but $9 million. Ickey, he's another one we talked about. Again, I look for the Panthers to pick up his 5th-year option. Otherwise, he'd be a free agent after this upcoming season. DJ Ekwonu, he's good. The other, Miles Sanders. What are the Panthers going to do with Miles Sanders? They're in a dilemma. That $8 million cap number right now probably felt like, 2-3 years ago, like, oh, we're going to be in good position paying this high-end running back only $8 million per season. But here we are, just the way things have played out for the Carolina Panthers. With Brooks likely not playing next year, I don't know what the Panthers are going to do. I really don't. You look at the last game with Miles Sanders, and maybe was that like the jump start? I don't know. But it's hard to imagine, given the state of the roster, the money that's being spent, if the Panthers will see fit to spend $8 million on him. Because when you go out and start to look at a lot of these contracts, remember the Panthers have 8 or 9 draft picks. I mean, a lot of the reason you draft well and you hit on these picks is you're spending a couple million, maybe $1 million. So you think about the difference that can make, and some of the undrafted free agents. Adam Thielen, I know he's technically debating retirement. Hopefully he's back, but his number's 8. And then we have one of the voided years. So Austin Corbett is not on the team, but we are responsible for a $7.7 million cap hit. Josie Jewell at 7.4. Dane Jackson, I think there's a good chance Dane Jackson's number is 5.8. Considering what we saw, I don't know that he's back. Like, he did not have a good year. And I know he was Dan Morgan's guy that he wanted to bring in, but it wasn't great. Chuba Hubbard at 5.5. That's wild. Chuba gets an extension, more money, and Miles Sanders is still making more than him. Josh Nijman still good. Shaq Thompson, he's another. You have a voided year with him at $4.2 million. The Panthers, if they chose to bring him back, of course, could work that out. Same thing, Andy Dalton is right behind him at 2.9. Panthers have a decision to make. I mean, pure football, purely Panthers fandom. I'm a fan of bringing back Shaq Thompson, but I also understand. I mean, it's been 2 seasons in a row where he's ended very early, season-ending injuries. He is currently 31. He'll be going on 32. Definitely has some years left in him. I'll be curious to see about his decision. And again, I've talked to Dave Canales and his respect for Shaq and the way they talked about each other very early in the process. So be curious how that plays out. Yeah, and then I'm not going to go through. I mean, we got a bunch of other guys sitting around 1 to whatever. Yeah, there's not a lot to work with for the Panthers right now. Considering it just felt like going into this year, it would likely be in a much better state. The one positive is the dead money cap hits. The largest amount for the Panthers is Jonathan Mingo's contract. So it's 1.7 against the cap, 1.7 million. Jamie Robinson is only 164,000. So Not too bad at all. We started a very early process of going through the mock drafts, the number 8 pick. I've got all that content coming out, free agents, who the Panthers should target. There's a lot of stuff rolling in. But I don't know. There's really not too much to talk through. I mean, I feel like everyone is pretty much up to speed, or at least I think you folks are, with Ejiro Evero being retained. Still a little bit shocked, but I guess not really that he was picked to come back here. I was trying to find if there was any other news that came in this week, but there's really not been. It's a light week. Let me get back over here. Catch up with y'all. Refs have been awful. I haven't watched a lot of that. Trust Bryce everyone. Yeah, I did talk about the quarterbacks. It's primarily NFC quarterbacks. Yeah, I was gonna do the poll of all quarterbacks in the playoffs, but then I was like, well, we're not technically, we are the NFC. I do think if you include the AFC, you're probably saying maybe two to three teams. I'd put Bryce Young over, which is wild. Caleb said, ready for the draft. What if we got Will Johnson and paired him with J.C. Horn? It'd be nice, man. Just give the Browns a first, 2 seconds for Myles Garrett and Grant Delpit. I don't know if I want to give that much up. Number 8 has to be defensive. Marco said, sorry. Number 8 has to be defensive line or edge. Wouldn't be made at a cornerback. Yeah, I feel like that has to be, I mean, the defensive front, which we saw the issues. I don't think a linebacker, I just know that a safety's been floated around there, but I agree with you. I mean, it feels like a situation where it's just like, which edge, are they high enough on the draft board for the Panthers? Do the Panthers feel like they're going to make or get enough out of whoever they pick out of here and bring them over? So I'm with you. How many people are college football fans? I mean, primarily Notre Dame, Ohio State. Any Notre Dame or Ohio State fans? I'm guessing not, considering most of content I cover is in North Carolina and South Carolina, but never know. I'm looking forward personally to the national championship game. I feel like Ohio State has a really good chance to win. Oh, I'm looking at Darren Gant's mailbag question, and there was somebody from Wilmington that dropped him. Dropped him a question on his weekly mailbag. It's if y'all have not gone out there, it's good tidbits of information on Panthers.com. You should read through it, or if you have time, go read through it. Some good stuff in there. Also nice to always hear fan perspective on a lot of this stuff. Probably the biggest news, and I don't know how many folks here follow me on X, but I know we've got YouTube here, Facebook. As you guys know, I've been doing a lot of work with college football, so going ahead and getting you guys prepared to know that we are going to be doing a refresh of the entire YouTube channel and podcast. And there are a few reasons. One, the monetization of it. It doesn't make sense for me to split out and create another channel. The user count, whatever subscriber count, keeps growing here. I don't feel like starting up another channel. I don't feel like managing all that. So with that said, I mean, as far as the content's going to stay the same. It's primarily Carolina Panthers, but you guys know that I'm also covering, again, college football in North Carolina, South Carolina. I say covering, talking about it. And so as I expand regionally, more than likely what you're going to see is an updated logo first of all, at some point, and then the potential for an updated name to the show, which I wanted to keep Two Growls, One Roar. I mean, I built it up. Personally, it's hard for me to want to let it go because I've had it for 2 years. Well, technically, I've had the name for a year and a half because I was 2 states, 1 team. This is the third refresh. Actually, yeah, second refresh that I've done with the show. But I had 2 states, 1 team, Carolina Panthers podcast. Changed it up to Two Growls, One Roar, which has been fun. It's been great, but it's very hard to encompass general sports talk into the show. And I want to expand. I can't really keep a Panthers themed name. So, anyways, the content itself is going to stay. It's going to stay the same. So you don't have to worry about me abandoning the Panthers. But we are looking at, or at least I'm looking at, a new logo and a new show name. I was debating trying to keep it close to Two Growls, and so I did like 2 games, 1 host, which would cover the 2 games of college football and the NFL. And I am 1 host. I'm 1 person. I went down that avenue. I've gone through probably 1,000 variations. I kid you not, because I just like plug into Chat GPT and I asked Chat, how should I rebrand this show? What is a good name? I even thought like, well, I'm just going to keep the show name Two Growls, One Roar, and we'll update the colors, update the logo. We'll make it more generic. But even then, as I look at some potential rebrand names, it's like it just doesn't make a lot of sense. Because I was like, oh, it'll be the Two Growls, One Roar sports show, which isn't bad, but I'm like, it still ties into Panthers theme, even if I change up the colors and all that and the brand. So, anyways, I don't know when I'm officially going to do this, because I originally was like, well, I was going to create an additional podcast, keep the channel, update the channel name. But I think for me, just as I grow and scale, it's going to make sense to just do it all at once. And I've seen a lot of regional folks that I follow that I mean, they primarily talk about one thing or the other, but they're able to talk about all regional sports in North Carolina, which I'm just centered on football. They've had a lot of success, and I think it, for me personally, is I want to continue to grow and want to expand and get more people tuned in beyond the Panthers world. That's something that we'll be exploring. So, anyways, I mean, right now it's looking like the old North State sports show, which is definitely much different, but I think it's kind of closer aligned to one. I'm in North Carolina. I think it'll be closer aligned, and I've got North Carolina, South Carolina incorporated into it. Doesn't have the Panthers on it. So TBD, but the good thing is, whatever I land, however I land this thing, I do appreciate folks that still tune in. Hopefully you will still tune in, because again, it's not changing. Just going to get a new logo, get a new name, and consolidate the podcast, actual podcast that we produced, because I put out a podcast. For those who don't watch the show on YouTube, or I mean, there's also people that just listen to the show. We have the Two Growls podcast. You can get it, again, wherever you get your podcast. But I think what I'm going to do is expand the offering that I have there to incorporate some of the college football stuff into it. So it'll hopefully streamline into one, especially as we get into the draft season. And again, not everything's going to overlap with what I watch versus players are going to be drafted by the Panthers, but I think it'll be a nice correlation. It was wild. I was listening. I'm not even going to call them out. It's nobody that y'all, I guarantee it's nobody that anyone on here follows. But it's someone that I know does a show, and I was listening to, it was a clip that popped of them discussing the Panthers. And number one, their first take on this was the lack of production from DJ Ekwonu. They're like, oh, that guy was hardly out there this year. I was like, number one, he was injured. We knew that coming in. But then we know the setback that he had with blood clots. And number three, when he was playing in the second half of the season, he was pretty much out there all the time, and he had a lot of impact. But these guys were on the show. It wasn't guys. I should say that. It was a mixture of people. I'll just say it was people on the show that were talking about DJ Ekwonu being cut. And they didn't even realize he was a free agent. Or they were trying to say that he was a free agent. Let me rephrase that. Then they went through the list and they got to Jadeveon Clowney, and they did the same exact thing to where they were trying to make decisions on who the Panthers should bring back. I'm like, I mean, I commented on the videos, not mean, but I just said, I mean, if you're going to do this, at least just pull up the roster and look at who is actually a free agent. Because I kid you not, like, the show, it's not, I just know for a fact, nobody here, maybe there's like 5% of people that listen to this. It is not a well-known show through X, YouTube, or anywhere, but I know there's like a reminiscent of it that pops out there. It's in the Triangle, I will tell you that. It's not a big podcast, so, but it's well-known people inside of it. Let's do it. Anyways, I got a kick out of that. And I was like, I can't. One thing that you'll get, and I need to, it doesn't mean anything to y'all, but I've been sitting here as like we get into the new year thinking about like the fundamentals of the show, the philosophy of the show, me as the host. And I've been trying to think about what I want to put on paper to just so people understand what they get by listening to me. So anyways, totally random. All that to say, I'm going to guess by it may be sooner. By the end of February, you will see a change. I'll record a video, not that people will listen, but I also understand if people are like, I don't know if I want to tune in anymore. It's understandable if you come here for one thing or the other. But to make it easy, it's still all football. And I will create a playlist so you can easily get to your content. Like if you only want Panthers, go to the Panthers playlist. I'll have that available. Again, if you want to get into other college football stuff, we'll have all that stuff on there too. But anyways, I think that's going to do it because I said 30 minutes and I would like to try to go catch the end of the game here. Plus it's late, weekend, all that fun stuff. TBD on the official cadence of this. So I will keep you guys posted to let you know. I want to go live at least once a week. Haven't decided on the day. So if there's a preference, I mean, you can drop it in the comment or let me know. I did put out a poll on YouTube and X. So anyways, folks, that is going to do it for tonight. Appreciate y'all tuning in. This is Carolina Dad. Y'all